Hey, Sox fans, welcome back to Good Guys Talk Back. This is episode 235. I am Nick Murawski. This is a fan-centric Chicago White Sox podcast. Find us absolutely everywhere you find your podcast. We try to do this live on Sunday nights on our YouTube channel. Subscribe, jump in the comments, join us on Sunday evenings as we chop up all things Chicago White Sox. With me, as always, my very good friend, diehard Sox fan, Pat Hester. Hello, sir.
Buddy, can you recall a stranger week in the history of the Chicago White Sox? Now, I know you and I haven't been around since 1901 to cover every single week of this team's existence, but I just don't remember a stranger week of strange news stories and breaking news ever, really, amongst and really overshadowing a great split of a series this week with the Oakland A's, the mighty A's, that is reminiscent of the 90s battles that the Sox had with the A's. So, hi, it's good to talk to you. I hope you're good.
Yeah, we had a run in an emergency pod, as a lot of people did after the big Williams and Hans situation earlier this week. So we got to some of that in the most recent episode. But boy, true to form, after we record something, just hours later or a day later, there's more stuff that drops, tons of rumors and different paths to follow of what kind of search is going on with the White Sox, who's running the search. Tony La Russa is back in the fold, which we're going to talk about. But yeah, Sox split with the Oakland Athletics, and the first two games were absolutely awful, but on par for what the Sox have been doing lately. Sox are 52-79 as we record, 27 games under 500, 16 games back in the Central with 31 games to play, and then the nightmare will be over. It was a crazy week. Dylan Cease, he looked absolutely lost against the Athletics. They were pounding the baseball everywhere. There was a shooting at Guaranteed Rate Field or somewhere away from the field where a bullet snuck in somewhere. I don't want to make light of it. Hopefully the folks that were injured are doing okay, but man, that happened. That was something that was real. And the I Love the 90s concert was canceled due to technical difficulties or the shooting, as we found out later on when more news dropped. So I don't even know where to start. I was watching as much as I possibly could stomach of this Oakland Sox series. And what struck me is something that Steve Stone said after the first two games. And I love Steve Stone when he just slips those like under the radar. But, if you're paying attention, really, needling comments. He tries not to do it too heavy-handed, but every now and then he'll slip one in there. And so Oakland just clobbered the Sox on Friday. And Stone said after the second game of that series, game wraps up, and he goes, "Well, not the hits, not the home runs for Oakland, but it was how they hustled every play the first two nights." And I love that little, you would maybe not paying attention to it, but he snuck it in and he knew what he was doing because, Oakland, they hustled, they played. You got guys on the Sox team that just, talk about want to get away. They want out in a major way. And, again, 31 games left, but it is, that was tough to watch.
Yeah, and you're right about Stoney. He's as as subtle as a brick to the face sometimes with his comments. And listen, I think it stems a little bit from Aloy's comments this week about, do you have conversations? Is there talk in this clubhouse about leadership? Is that a conversation that comes up? And Aloy just blank faced, the look of I'd rather be anywhere than having to answer these questions or talk to you people. Just demoralized look on his face. No, we don't have conversations like that. No, I don't have. And it makes you just kind of think, wow, this guy in particular is not anybody that you can build around. I think you and I both were on lockstep thinking 1-2 in a lineup between him and Robert. These are two somewhat cornerstone type guys that you can have in your lineup for years to come, and visions of Bash brother type of home runs being put up. And it's just led me to a place where Eloy will never be what we were hoping he would be. He'll never be anything more than just a goofball that will run into home runs once in a while, but never be available. He won't be available enough to have an impact on this team or maybe a team ever. So, and those kind of comments just kind of solidified that he's not the kind of player, he's not a winning player, right? You need winners on teams, and he's just not a winner. He's a loser.
Yeah, the crew, the post-game NBC Sports Chicago crew went off on those comments. And, Chuck was, he was fired up for most of the week and, yelling about TWTW, which I will jokingly talk about, but I'm kind of half serious. I mean, I know it's such a, homerish thing with Hawk and the whole, corny TWTW, but I think there's something there. There's something, some drive, some passion, some just innate desire to, I'm going to do whatever it absolutely takes to win. That's just my build, my makeup. And, Chuck going off about, we need more of those types of guys. We need some of those, and then we need more of them. Ozzy, went off and said, the reason they got fired, Rick and Kenny, is because of them, meaning the players, especially after Eloy's comments. Scotty Podsednik, who was around this past week, there's been no standard set whatsoever. This team has not been held accountable this entire year. They don't play hard. They don't run hard. He has picked apart the Sox several times in his comments. He's been right to the point. That's the stuff that really that gets me, and when you see Oakland that is hustling, playing, like, why can't you do that? And maybe that's where they're going to get to in the offseason. I don't know. Is they're going to just trim the fat and say, I wish it went a different way. I had so many, like you had mentioned, I had so many other visions for the potential and the output for some of these players, but they're not the type of players we want to build a team around moving forward. Mistakes were made, and we're going to have to figure that out. Now, there's financial, issues tied with some of that, but that was alarming.
Yeah, and a lot of comments that you just made coming from the post-game crew and the pregame crew, rather, as well. Really, it's a lack of leadership from your manager. If there's no standards being set, who's the one supposed to be setting those standards? That's your general manager and especially your field manager, in terms of setting the tone for the team. And you saying things like TWTW reminded me of the most recent, one of the most recent Hawkisms before he left was Ricky's boys don't quit. Remember that? And then Ricky Renteria, who you're very quick to dismiss after a brief playoff appearance, and we needed somebody else to push this team over the top. There were some of the same players that were, on that team that were still on this team last year and this year. What happened to those guys? What happened to the Ricky's boys don't quit team? And was it all because of the managers that have been in this seat for the last 2 years, 3 years, really?
Yeah. I hate to think back sometimes. You wander, the mind wanders when you think about, Ricky Renteria and what if things been different? And I think they would have drastically. And that's a tough game to play. Sydney, a couple of things he threw in the comments. The protests, Obviously, with A's in town, there was a lot going on, sell the team stuff. That was, I enjoyed seeing that more than what was going on the field. And that almost camaraderie between A's fans and White Sox fans. And I don't like Eloy's comments, but he's being honest, and I guess that's what we have to deal with. But that has to change. That mindset, that culture, that attitude. Thank you for being honest, but that doesn't fly here.
Thank you for being honest, but maybe take a look at yourself and look at the team and go, that's unacceptable. We realize that. I realize that as now a veteran player on this team. That's something that maybe I realize that I've fallen short on, and maybe that's a role I needed to step into. I don't know. Maybe there's something that you could have added on just rather than just say, I don't know, and we don't talk about it. It's like, well, somebody's got to know about it, and somebody's got to talk about it, and somebody's got to address it. Unless you're just, again, and I'm sure all of them are, and I'm sure all of them want to put this season far behind them. If you're just reserved to just play out the string as you are and not address anything, there's going to be new eyes looking at you, whether it is Chris Getz or whoever it might be. As far as your next general manager, there are new eyes looking on you. You're not the Kenny Williams pick, or you're not the Rick Hahn pick anymore. If you want to be around this on this organization, then you might want to start auditioning for your job in the future. And I don't know if that's the case. And maybe they're just reluctant to just say the hell with it, I'll go somewhere else if that's the case. But what you do now, it's on tape for other teams as well. It's not just the team you're currently on. So if this is the way that what you want to put on your resume going forward, it's out there for everybody to see.
Yeah, that's a good point. Talking about, interviewing for your current job or auditioning. So Tony La Russa is apparently back. Maybe he's always been around. I heard some stuff, right? I read a few things that, he's always been in the fold. He never really left. And I don't, again, maybe I wasn't paying attention. I thought he really left for some health issues, and I'm sure Jerry wanted to keep him around. But we just found out it was leaked. It was pushed out. Announcements were made this past week after our emergency podcast that La Russa is back as a consultant. And Pedro Grifol, apparently, a few days ago on Wednesday, met with Reinsdorf and La Russa, who is back working as a consultant. And he's been medically cleared now to work again, and recently scouted the White Sox minor league system. La Russa did. Grifol expected to be asked what went wrong this year, how does he plan to fix it, and what personnel changes are needed. So that was apparently what Grifol was going to be doing this past week. And I don't think he knows. And would you trust him? If he gives you an answer, I mean, it might sound good because he gave us a lot of great sound bites back in November and throughout the offseason and at Camelback Ranch. But I mean, I don't trust the guy. I don't know. I don't understand why you keep him around, aside from the relationship that he apparently has with Chris Getz and the Dayton Moore situation, this Kansas City Royals thing that is migrating to the south side of Chicago that makes my stomach turn. That could be the only issue that I can think of.
Yeah, it's I'm kind of at a loss for words. I really don't know.
You have to be.
I don't know
what
to say.
Understandable.
We were so I don't know if excited is the word that we had on an emergency podcast with the change. It was change that we weren't expecting, and it was new and it was fresh. And we thought maybe this is the opportunity this team takes to look outside and look at other organizations, like I've been harping on for a long time. If you are hell-bent on not investing a ton in your players, then maybe look at the Rays organization, an organization that's won consistently and gotten almost a championship in the past, I don't know, 5-6 years, whatever it is, when they went to the World Series and lost it ultimately to the Phillies. That's a team that scouts really well, that develops really well, that does a lot of things really well, that's not going to spend a lot of money. So maybe you look and go, okay, if we're not going to spend a lot of money, we're going to be great in this area, and we need to bring people from that organization here. Or if we're going to be, the Braves, let's look in their organization. Who's the next up and comers? And I've said this 1,000 times. I feel like I'm going to fall over, passed out from saying it so much. But what have you continued to do now? Now you're going back and tapping into the Royals, the Kansas City Royals that had a blip on the radar, 2 years where they were really, really good. Outside of that, they've been an awful organization. And I mean, an awful organization, Nick, in terms of winning and losing. Somehow they continually kick our ass all the time, but they're not anything that you'd say is a gold standard in baseball of how you want to run an organization, or develop teams, or invest in players or anything. There's nothing there that you want to emulate or do the same. I can't understand why you'd be so short-sighted and go, I'm too lazy to work hard enough to get really strong, innovative baseball minds, or ask other people. I just know these couple guys really well, and those are the ones that I trust, and that's all I'm going to trust. But why do you trust them? That's what I would say is, why do you trust these people? Do they have this laundry list of success that you'd say, I know if I need something, I'm going to go to this person because they've got a resume that's, can't be challenged by anybody. It's just a lazy way to go about owning a team. And if that's what you are planning on doing, for the love of everything pure and good in this world, please just sell it. I can't understand. And I know we've been screaming from the mountaintops now for a long time for Jerry to sell, and that the chants were loud and clear, more so last year than this year, I think even. But my goodness gracious, if you were going to be so lazy and so stupid, actually, to not go outside and try and find really good baseball people to run your baseball team, then I really am sick to my stomach anymore.
Yeah. Dayton Moore, the Texas Rangers senior advisor of baseball operations, who spent 16 years as the Kansas City Royals GM, also could join Getz in a key front office position. The two close friends worked together in Kansas City, where they won back-to-back pennants and the 2015 World Series. It'll likely be weeks before the White Sox make an official decision, but Getz and Moore are the overwhelming favorites to be running the White Sox baseball operations before the season's conclusions. Saw that from multiple different sources, but also saw John Morrissey. He expects a real search, is it an attractive gig? I've also heard that it is an attractive gig. There were a couple articles. I think there was one in The Athletic that I read where, other GMs from around the league have weighed in recently and said, yeah, it's an attractive gig. However, what kind of rope is Jerry Reinsdorf giving you? What are you getting yourself into? And I think that's the question, so is he going to surround himself again with people that know the drill, what to ask for, you know what not to ask for, just don't make a lot of waves. I'm not trying to change everything up here, just play nice. You get along with Pedro Grifol. He's signed for a couple more years. This will work out great.
It's just like the path of least resistance, really, right, Nick? It's like, well, it's just piecemealing these things together to just try and, I don't really want to be bothered too much with all this. It was hard enough for me to make this change after having somebody in my organization for 38 years. Kenny Williams was part of the White Sox organization in one way, shape, or other. 38 years he was part of this organization. It's crazy. Rick Hahn, I don't know how many years he has been with the organization, but he has just been, Teflon Hahn for a long time. And I just think it was so much for Jerry to make that change and make that move. He's just going to go with the easiest way for the rest of the way forward. And, I can't understand how you can do any kind of an exhaustive search in the time period that they're talking about by the end of the year, because the teams are still playing. There's people that are still, maybe chasing pennants or trying to get to the playoffs or do other things. I don't know. Maybe I'm way off. Maybe it's a lot easier to find a general manager and a VP of baseball operations, but I just can't imagine that they're going to go any other way than Getz and maybe this other Giacomo that you mentioned before that I can't even remember his name because I don't care to.
Yeah, you don't want to get used to that name because you hope it doesn't happen. It's Dayton Moore that maybe you're searching for.
Yes, thank you very much.
Yeah.
I appreciate that. But either way, Nick, it doesn't even really matter. This team isn't again seemingly going to be competitive.
That's a question I've been asking myself for a long time. Does it even really matter? But it does. It matters to me very much. It matters to the folks listening, watching, diehard Sox fans, absolutely everywhere. To us that live, eat, sleep, drink, breathe this team, this organization, it does matter. But you're right. I think to what you're getting at is no matter who might be put in, if Reinsdorf is still playing that power struggle game, that thing that he does, then I guess ultimately it doesn't matter, right?
And you're going to have a year here or a year there that they're going to sneak up and they're going to be sneaky good somehow. And it's all going to fall into place, right? Eventually, I would imagine the players, the majority of the players that they have will be gone. And maybe they'll do like they've always done and maybe, get a guy hoping for lightning in a bottle here, get a guy in the cheap that's at the back end of their career, maybe fill out a rotation that's somewhat good enough to compete in the woeful American League Central. And you'll have a nice, fun summer, right? But it'll be a boom and bust type of situation if they even make it to the playoffs in those situations. Until these next couple of years play out where, the discussion of the stadium, the discussion of selling of the team and all this stuff that has come out this week kind of unfolds and plays itself out. I don't know what kind of direction you can really take. And you talked about, is this, job attractive? I would say anybody would look at, there's only so many general managers of baseball teams, there's positions in the world, Nick. So I would think anybody would be looking to, whether they succeed here or not, if I have an opportunity to get a promotion and lead a team, and maybe it's not a long-term thing here, but if I show some success on the south side of Chicago, maybe there's the next thing that I can move into and the next opportunity in my career path. So I would still say it's, yes, a still attractive job if you can, in fact, infuse whatever your standards are and have that trickle down. If you have a vision and the standard of how you want White Sox baseball to be seen and consumed by your fans, please tell us what that is. Please be very clear on who's making those decisions on trades and player personnel and all that stuff. If the buck stops with you, we want to understand that you're in charge and what is your mission statement. Please tell me what your mission statement is of the Chicago White Sox so we can hold that up. And I liken it back to, the campaign, and maybe it was just a silly marketing campaign, but the grinder rules, win or die trying. That should be the mission statement of the Chicago White Sox till the end of time. You walk in this door, this is who we are. We are win or die trying. And whether that's cheesy or not, but that's how every player, as they walk into that clubhouse, should be thinking. And that got lost over the years. And the Ricky's boys don't quit type of stuff got lost. And this team is a team of guys that plays for themselves and not for each other. Whoever the next GM is has to get it back to getting a group of guys, whether it's some of these guys or none of these guys. We have to play together, and that's how we're going to win.
I hope they don't revisit the kids can play, because that means we're going in a very different direction. and Matthew's right in the comments. Thank you. We don't know what direction the Sox are going in, and that can be somewhat comforting. If like maybe there's hope, and it also could be a little alarming when you're starting to. Either, if you're a season ticket holder, if you're somebody that's starting to make some plans financially, is this something I want to commit to? Well, I don't know what direction they're going in. That scares me maybe a little bit right now. And I guess you can exercise some patience, but if you've been around this organization and this team long enough, you kind of get a sense right? Because this is how it usually goes. Reinsdorf will bring in folks that he almost can easily control, and probably not the best people, but that will play ball, so to speak. I don't want somebody that's going to be learning the job, on the job. Not with somebody that is going to, be the one decision maker. You got to have a resume. You have to have a good resume. You have to have credentials. You have got to have references, and you have to have some damn good experience with results. I don't want anybody with just potential of, well, I think in maybe 4 or 5 years they might have something here, or boy, that was a really good interview. Great. I want somebody that actually has been doing this before with success. And, I hope there is a real search that John Murawski talked about. But if they're trying to make this decision by the end of the season, I don't know how that goes. Go ahead, Pat.
No, I'm sorry. I'm just trying to think of what kind of GM worth their salt would want to come into a situation where they're told who their manager is going to be. If you're going to take a job, wouldn't you want to make the decision on who's going to be leading your team and say, you know what, I appreciate you, Pedro. And I don't mean for this episode to turn into Fire Pedro type of show, because I haven't been very positive on Pedro, but he hasn't been very positive on.
I do have some quotes, by the way, some quotes of the week eventually for Pedro.
And oh God, I love the quotes of the week. Yes, I think this is a great opportunity and great segment that we've created. Yeah. But I think it'd be pretty weak. You're looking at a pretty weak GM right off the bat if they're willing to take a job with somebody else's manager. That's my opinion. Whether that person gets to, whether the deal is okay, we're having Pedro stay here for a year. You have a year to evaluate him, and after that, you can make the decision, and you can fire him before his 3rd year is up if that's the way you choose. But for me, if I'm the one that's running the show, I want to pick my guy and the person that is going to be running my team on the field, because that's an extension of me, and we have to be lockstep in the way that we're going to be running things, from what I'm doing in terms of bringing you players and the way that you are instilling our standards on the field.
Yeah. A couple of rumors to throw at you that I had seen on social media and different articles, linked to articles and so forth this past week. According to Cap, on ESPN 1000, of course, Rick Hahn tried to resign multiple times, but Reinsdorf told him that since he had several years left on his deal, he would not let him get a job with another team. So that was
how does that happen? I would like to leave my job. Nope. No,
it's again like it's you got to turn your key. It's both. Both of you have to turn your key. What was it? A torpedo launcher that Costanza referenced on a submarine? Both have to turn their key.
Turn your keys.
And okay. Well,
how bizarre! I mean, of all the bizarre things I've heard, it's like, no, I'd rather have you stay. I won't let you, because I will block you from getting another job elsewhere. You have to stay here. So I want to keep an employee that doesn't want to be here and maybe not fully engaged in what he's doing every day and doing the best job he possibly can, and cause rifts and dysfunction between his boss, seemingly Kenny Williams, and he, on who's making. I want all this turmoil. He's like a witch, like a double toil and trouble. There's Jerry. He lets people infight. He did the same thing with the Bulls, and it's been well documented. People argue and fight in that, or in his organizations.
You're saying he loves it. He loves the drama.
I think so. I think he loves to see these people in uncomfortable situations, and it's like it. He thinks they're going to thrive and be successful somehow. It's not. It's craziness.
Yeah, it is. It is craziness. This was from Bob Nightingale, our friend, confirmed that in the previous power structure, Kenny Williams had the power to make any trade he wanted, but Rick Hahn had to ask for permission from Kenny to do so. So that is news to me, and another nice little dynamic in your witch analogy of Jerry Reinsdorf, where he creates this ass backwards power structure and has them have to, Rick has to ask permission from Kenny to make a trade.
Hey, Kenny. He's pulling on his shirt like, hey, I'd like to make a trade. No, you stay out of White Sox business. But I am the GM.
But I am actually.
I have to be a part.
I'm supposed to be involved in White Sox
the press.
And then this was AJ on the Sox Talk podcast. And
yeah, I haven't listened to it. I've been meaning to, but he was.
So La Russa is back, of course, and according to AJ, I think this is what he had mentioned. La Russa doesn't like Williams and Rick Hahn because they didn't want La Russa to manage the White Sox. Tony persuaded Jerry to fire them. Tony considers Dayton Moore to be one of the best guys in baseball. Chris Getz considers Dayton Moore to be a father figure. Dayton Moore hired both Getz and Pedro Grifol with the Royals. There you go. So, I mean, it sounds like Jerry Reinsdorf in his witches, around the cauldron, whatever he's doing, the hocus pocus stuff. He's brought in La Russa to also add to all of this turmoil. And it's worked because we have all of this to chop up and try to figure out. And I just want to flush it all, to use a Pedro Grifol quote that isn't part of quotes of the week, but just flush it. This is all just nonsense.
So with Tony back in the mix, he's like the Winter Warlock. You remember the Winter Warlock from Santa Claus is Coming to Town? He's the Winter Warlock. I do. And Jerry,
we need some sort of flow chart set up behind you or behind me of who is what figure and how are they trying to
and Jerry's the heat miser. You remember the heat miser?
I absolutely do.
Okay.
So I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but I do.
Yeah, he's heat miser, and Tony is Winter Warlock. So those are some images to help you understand, who's making these decisions and who's advising who. Again, the best there is right now in Dayton.
Who's
Moore,
UConn? Right? Who's the UConn guy?
UConn Cornelius?
Yes.
Well, he's a good person. I mean, UConn's probably super rope salesman.
He's just trying to tell people how it is. Maybe I can get a little bit higher.
Happy go lucky. He's just happy to have a job.
Yeah. Well, your mind works in mysterious ways, Pat, and I do appreciate that analogy. Maybe we can get the little action figures next time, and you can kind of play the whole roll out. Another Seinfeld reference when he created the shadow box of what happened to his briefcase. You can kind of set up a diorama, so to speak.
Well, I mean, for those of that are on the younger side that watch us, get on YouTube and look these folks up, and you'll see their claymation. They're from holiday movies, and then they're fantastic movies that you could watch. They're only about a half hour, and you can get through them, and then you just visualize Heat Miser as Jerry Reinsdorf.
Well, we'll revisit this around the holidays, and I think that'll be running in real time, and it'll make complete sense to everybody.
Yeah, and we can assign a holiday character to everybody in the front office, because by then they'll all be there. They'll be in the winter meetings, and we'll assign them each some type of caricature.
Yeah, that makes sense. We're gonna need content, but that's the other thing is, we're just getting so much content. The team is absolutely horrible, but every single day there's a new little wrinkle, a new little twist of what potentially could be. So I got several Pedro quotes, but I also do have a quote of the week. So I'll give you, this isn't my official quote of the week, but this is Pedro praising Chris Getz. He's extremely articulate. He's smart. He's been around. He's got experience. Player development really prepares people to do this type of stuff. He's got experience in the clubhouse as a player and as an executive. He's well equipped to do what he's being asked to do. Even as a player, you could tell he had characteristics of becoming an executive at some point if he chose to go that route. And then When he got into the front office, I know he was highly regarded as a young executive. He's certainly equipped to do what he's been asked to do by Jerry right now. None of that screams, this is the person we want to lead us into a new direction. But he's an articulate, smart guy who's been around.
He's been around. I wrote that down.
I've been around.
When you said he's been around.
around.
Oh, that's good. I've been around too.
And how's that if you walk into an interview and you just like, I've been around. I have. Look, you're going to interview a lot of people. I don't know if they've all been around, but I have been around. So I'm going to lead with that and let you just chew on it for a little bit as I try now to BS my way through any other experience and credentials.
Yeah, and it's funny. I haven't yet, and maybe it's because he hasn't been, it's not been officially his job yet, or there's no announcement made, or they're doing some type of vast search. But I'd like to know from the people in the know, like the Jeff Passons of the world, or the Buster Olneys of the world. What is Chris Getz's reputation around the league as far as what he does, and because he's been around so much, and because of whatever he was doing in the middle infield, people go, he got that ground ball. He looks like he could be a general manager someday. Please explain to me by turning a double play that you go, that someday he's going to make a great GM.
I can just tell by the way why he took that. Oh my goodness!
Look at the way he covered first on the bunt. That was just great.
Wow, young executive. Here we come. Wow.
Yeah. So that's what I'd like to find out. I'd like to find out from the people in the know that cover this league and see all the organizations and the up and comers, and where does Chris Getz, rank in that? Do they go,
what you're going to get from a lot of people? They're going to say, who? Who are you talking about? Chris Getz.
Yeah.
No, not familiar.
Yeah. It sounds like more like a nickname, like you'd call somebody that's, I don't know, able to get things. Just call me Chris Getz because I get things.
Here's my Pedro quote of the week for you. It's short, it's sweet, and I had a laugh about it. This is Pedro in reference to decision makers and what's going on and what could be with this White Sox team. This is a really good organization with a great owner. All he wants to do is win. And I'm sorry, but I laughed out loud when I read that quote from our fearless leader, Pedro Grifol. Boy, he has not been around, Pedro Grifol.
He's been in Kansas City. How can you be around if you've been one place?
Chicago Junior. Let's just call it that. Yeah, that is true. It sure sounds. A lot of people are saying he's safe, Pedro Grifol, and I guess if you're going to bet, which you and I don't know if that's the smart thing for us to do, but I would. That's probably where your money is. The smart money is that he's going to stick around. I just hope that it's a drastic change. Again, when you have something like with Hahn and Williams being gone, you'd think, well, oh, wow. Well, anything is truly possible. But then if you believe in this, La Russa snuck in as the consultant and had them banished, well, then we're kind of back to square one here. And I don't have faith that the right situation is going to be done with this ultimate decision maker. So I don't know. Maybe Pedro's like, hey, if you want me to succeed, I need Getz and I need Dayton Moore. I need them around me. That's how we're going to change. And I need Salvador Perez and I need Whit Merrifield and I need Mike Moustakas and who else was on that Royals team? I need all those. If you could bring me all of those, then I think we might have something here.
I'd rather have some great Kansas City restaurants. Barbecue restaurants.
I would just have the barbecue. Just bring me the barbecue. Leave Getz and Dayton Moore and ship Grifol back and just bring me the barbecue, please. Yeah.
Boy, well, when Pedro talks about the great owner and all he wants to do is win and all that garbage, that's a man that's wanting to keep his job, obviously.
Sure, of course.
Um,
Yeah.
and maybe, just maybe, when he comes back next year, because I fully believe he's going to be coming back next year. It would shock. That would be one thing that would maybe not all, like, whoa, floor me shock type, but I would be a little bit surprised if they would change managers. There is, I guess there's an opportunity for everybody, right? No matter what you do, to learn from your experiences and grow from them and possibly be better. So maybe we get a better version of Pedro next year. Maybe the things that he used as bulletin board material type quotes, before the season, where at 7-10 we're going to kick your ass every night. Maybe that actually comes more to fruition next year. I don't know, but let's hope that if he's going to remain the manager, that the fire that he had for the position, gets going a little bit earlier next year. Maybe he can get to people a little bit more.
I'm just tired of guys trying to figure it out, on the job. Like, well, I'll figure it out. Next year will be better. I'm tired of that, from a managerial level to executives, what have you. From Bob Nightingale's Sunday piece in the USA Today, White Sox are exploring the possibility of having a retractable roof stadium with their current lease expiring after the 2028 season. At the rate, Sox are currently looking at 3 sites if they move out of Guaranteed Rate Field in South Chicago, the United Center area in the West Loop, Arlington Heights, and Soldier Field, which is something you have been on for a long time. What if the Sox just played at Soldier Field?
Well, that would be interesting. I mean, because the article states a retractable dome. They couldn't get a retractable dome situation, for the Bears when they renovated the first time, and part of the reason why the Bears are looking to go to Arlington Park as it speaks. So, what kind of pull? Which is, he's got to have a lot of political pull in the state and in the city. Jerry Reinsdorf, what is he going to be able to get done that the Bears ultimately couldn't get done? How do you reconfigure that? That would be a complete reconfiguration of the stadium. The White Sox wouldn't be owning it, right? The Bears don't own; they lease from the Park District, if memory serves correctly. That would be a bizarre one. The only reason I've ever said anything about, not particularly maybe Soldier Field, but playing on the lakefront, just for
with the skyline, the ambiance.
I think it would be. Think about it. The summertime, it's warm out. You're near the lake. I think it would lead to. I think it would be a positive thing in terms of where you're at. Now, you would lose a lot in terms of the charm of the tailgates, because you would still be able to tailgate, but parking would be at a minimum to do that, and it would be a complete. They'd have to really do a lot of overhaul to make that work, because getting in and out of Soldier Field as it is now after a Bears game is a complete nightmare. And doing that for 81 games versus 8 football games, I mean, that would be a complete disaster. So I don't know how that would all work. In terms of going to Arlington Heights, is that something where they're looking to rent from the Bears property, or is that looking to be, if the Bears build, is it a sports complex similar to what's, again, like in Kansas City, where you've got the 2 stadiums right next to each other, right? We're going to be.
Maybe that's what Griffol's saying. It's just like, hey, we had the Chiefs right next to Kauffman Stadium, and Jerry's like, interesting concept.
Let's do everything Kansas City does.
Again, it's when Costanza was bringing the calzones to Steinbrenner, and all of a sudden,
have you been binging Seinfeld? Have you?
I've seen every episode. I feel like half a dozen times, if not more. And it just, these analogies just pop up. But I think Jerry might have bought some land in the United Center area, and West Loop. I feel like he might have gobbled up some property. I don't know. Who knows what he's doing, but maybe. I don't know. I just it just piqued my interest a little bit.
What would you like, Nick? Would you ultimately like your hope for them to stay put where they're at, or because I don't know if I've ever asked you this, and maybe I don't remember your answer. Are you open to them exploring one of these options or a different option in terms of where they might call home after 2028 or whatever it is, 2030?
Well, I get the idea that, the modern baseball experience is not just, the stadium and, maybe you've got some tailgating here and there. It is a whole mecca, man. It is a village, it is all year. It's a town almost, where, I mean, that's how a lot of these complexes are that I've traveled all over the country seeing the Sox, the modern stadium and what they've built around that stadium in terms of whether it's residential or, it's big business. And it's unbelievable. Like, you start walking and you can just see it. You see the businesses, you see the venues, and like then there in the clearing is like, there is the jewel, there's the stadium. And I think that's what an owner maybe would want in the future is, hey, I want the opportunity to do all of this. I feel like the location, that would be crushing if they left, the South Side. But I could see, there's opportunities in the suburbs. There's land in the suburbs. Whether you're going to be able to work all of that magic and all those different angles and the tax stuff and all the loopholes to figure that out in that time, because it's 6 years away, but are you going to look at 5.5 years or 5 years and be like, well, we should probably figure out what we're going to be doing here? This has got to start happening now.
Yeah.
You got to be prepared for when this goes down in 6 years. So the wheels have to start moving. I don't look, I want what's best for this organization. And, I don't have a vision of what it could look like or where it could be or build it here. But if somebody wants to do it better and an owner comes in and says, look, I want to be able to have, all these amenities and all these things that modern places do. I want a better stadium. Well, they might have to leave.
Yeah. And I'd be curious to know too, since it's interesting to hear all this coming out about moving and new stadium and this and that, because I would think in my mind, I would think if Jerry was 15 years younger in the current situation he's in, he would just say, let's just renew the lease. I've got a sweetheart deal. However, I got to do that to stay right here because this is good business for me. I think he might look at it now of, I can probably increase the value of my team by X for when I'm ready to sell it and maximize what I get in return. Because right now, if he sold the team, it's probably worth $1 billion, right? I'm not going to pretend I'm a finance or business major in any way, shape, or form. But I would imagine if you own your own stadium, right, that just increases the value of the total, and that way you can turn it around and sell it at a premium. So I wonder if that has something to do with all this that's come out about moving or new stadiums, is because he's really envisioning selling this team within the next 5 years, 6 years, but you have to have the actual facility.
Right. Correct. I think that's
and part of it to put it in the package to sell. So
yeah,
I think really, Nick, it means it's more of a when and not if. If I was to put it at a percentage, I'd say it's maybe more of a 60-40.
I don't see them leaving Illinois though. I think the Nashville thing is just, boy, I don't see it. I just don't see it. I think it's a bunch of leverage stuff, similar to the late 80s with Florida.
Yeah.
But with what has happened to the Chicago Bears, which was unheard of, like there's no way the Chicago Bears would leave Chicago proper, especially Soldier Field and everything. And the fact that that's most likely going to be happening, well, anything can happen, right?
Mhm.
And I think that's maybe Reinsdorf and his team is reimagining. Oh, well, wait a second. Oh, we're allowed to do this. Like, okay, I'm gonna try something else here.
Yeah.
I'm not stuck here. So I mean, I hope they stay in on the south side, but I completely can see them leaving for a suburb. When this deal goes down.
Well, they
Uh,
give us something to talk about over the next 6
oh,
years
I'm
anyway.
sure. Oh yeah, we can do a live show from the ground, from the construction site, and we'll get good guys talk back hard hats, and there'll be a whole thing, a lot of promotion stuff.
Oh, I can't wait to see that
Yeah,
come out.
yeah. So a few positives that I thought were worth talking about before we say goodbye. Corey Lee is up, kind of watching him, seeing how he handles himself behind the plate. Saw his arm a few times. It had some pop. It's going to take him some time to figure out, what's going on offensively. Lenyn Sosa up. I've liked what I've seen from him. I mean, he looks a little different, right? Than the last time we saw him. He said, I feel good, comfortable, calm, with more knowledge of the strike zone here. So went to school, so to speak, and hopefully, he's brought some discipline and a better idea. He's flexed some power. Had 3 home runs this week. He had one on Saturday.
Yeah.
I hope he continues to get playing time. I mean, Luis Robert is just, boy, is he a joy to watch. I mean,
Yeah.
just enjoy him on both sides. Defensively, flash the leather against Oakland, and then offensively, whether he's roping a couple doubles or hitting the ball at the ballpark, he continues to be, must see while you're watching. If you're going to watch the game, it's like, what's Robert doing? I mean, because he is now in uncharted territory with games played and everything. And that's what we've been hoping for, right? For so long, is get this guy to stay on the field and good things are going to happen. And it's just, wow, what a twist. He has been able to stay on the field in one of the worst seasons of all time.
Yeah, and that'll be like I talked about last week. Is it do you look at it and go, if we're in full on rebuild in the off season, you're pretty much wasting an MVP caliber type guy. So if you're just in full on rebuild, do you do that and try and move them? That'll be something to talk about in the off season.
Yeah. Oh my goodness.
I am not in that camp, by the way. I would much rather say,
could you get in that camp? I mean, could you see yourself maybe changing that?
Listen, I don't think you can be like 1 foot in, 1 foot out type of thing, right? I think if you're going to try and salvage it, you've got to try and put pieces around him to, to make this thing work. And maybe it's changing a couple guys out and bringing something back in return, in terms of maybe it's Tim Anderson who's not here anymore, and maybe it's Eloy who's gone, and we're going to fill in and maybe spend some money, which I know that's not going to happen. But I would much rather them try and figure it out to try and capitalize on this talent. I really, really would. But if they're just going to be like, well, he's under contract, we're going to keep him, and he's a reason why people are going to come out, but the rest of the team is going to stink, it's not going to really help your team for the future if you do that.
Yep, that's man. You can make the argument both ways. Not the first time something like this has happened in any sport with a superstar type talent. So, yeah, we'll have a lot to discuss in terms of the roster and all that, and what they could do. And maybe we'll get some glimpses of that, or at least get an understanding when the decision maker is announced towards the end of the season.
Oh my gosh, I can't wait. I'm on pins and needles.
Yeah.
But I just listen to Bob Nightingale, by the way, everybody.
Oh yeah.
Don't listen to anybody else's rumors or searches. It's whatever Bob Nightingale says will happen. Bob might not be right about anything else other than the Chicago White Sox.
I don't know if I just catch him when he is right, but and as I saw something that looked, Jerry hates leaks, and that La Russa might be the one that talks to Nightingale to get things out there. But then if he hates leaks and his best buddy in the world, La Russa, is doing it, I mean, I don't get that. It's like it's allowed if La Russa does it.
Yeah.
I don't get that.
You know what that just reminded me of when he said he hates leaks? It reminded me of the old SNL sketch, "Oops, I crap my pants," where it was adult diapers,
Yeah.
and I just could see
Yeah.
Jerry talking
Sure.
to Tony and saying, "I just hate leaks," and maybe he's not worried about what leaks to the press, but he's just getting leaks through the "Oops, I crap my pants."
Miscommunication.
Yeah.
Just everything broke down.
Yeah.
Big mistake. I misunderstood you. Folks, it is an absolute treat to have you join us every Sunday night in the YouTube comments. Thank you so much for passing this Sox podcast along to other fans in your life. We try to do this every Sunday night. You can get the audio version. It'll drop later on Sunday night. You can find the audio everywhere. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. You'll get alerted if we, have to throw in some emergency podcasts or some extra podcasts throughout the week. Never a bad idea these days. So thank you so very much. We're on Twitter at Good Guys TB. We've got a Facebook fan page. Pat, always a pleasure, my friend, talking Sox with you.
This was a fun one. They always give us something to talk about, buddy. I can't wait to do it next week.
Yeah. For Pat Hester, I am Nick Murawski. Until next time, go Sox.